Now, here's your host, Dr. Irene Conlan.
It is my absolute pleasure to welcome to the Self-Improvement Show, Christopher Moon. Chris, welcome.
Thank you, Irene. I'm excited to participate.
You've written a book, The Untethered Relationship. I love the cover. The cover, for those of you who haven't seen it, is white, and it has a rope hanging down the middle of it, and the rope has been cut, and the ends are frayed. And the title is The Untethered Relationship. Experience your unimaginable capacity for love. Chris, what do you mean by an untethered relationship? I would assume that the rope is off your neck or the leash is off. I don't know.
Well, there's two examples I'd like to give about that. One is historically, marriage and intimate relationships was more like a three-legged race where two people get together at a picnic and you tie the right leg to the other one's left leg, and they have to run around and get to the finish line ahead of everyone else. And it always looks very awkward because you have two distinct individuals learning how to live in rhythm with each other, learning how to move in rhythm with each other. Which is fine as long as they both want to go in the same direction. But as soon as one wants to go in one direction, the other one wants to go in a different one, that's when you begin to see these struggles occurring, because they feel they're tied together by some invisible bond, I don't know which, and that doesn't it only makes for conditional agreements or compromises. It doesn't allow for each person to be free to live according to their heart's desire. The other example I'd give is that of the two-boat policy that I write about in the book, and that is, again, historically, relationship has been one person getting in the other person's boat and then them sailing off into the sunset, romantically, etc. But my experience is that my wife and I can't even agree on how to drive a car. What's the best rules for the road, etc. So for us to be in one boat, it would be so difficult for us, the individuals in the relationship, to be able to express their essence, because there's always this sense that they're bound, or sometimes even marriage turns into a prison. So the untethered relationship is about, just being free to be true to yourself and share that experience with another person, but not only that, to support the other person to be true to themselves too. And so that means giving each other the freedom, which is a huge risk in modern relationships, because we're very jealous people. Human beings are very jealous individuals, and very, I don't know, I wouldn't want to say insecure, but I don't see that in general that we've grown up enough to be able to give each other the freedom that every human being deserves.
In the book, and you just brought up a lot of questions in my mind, but in the book you talk about emotional adulthood. How is emotional adulthood different from emotional intelligence or emotional, what's the other one that we use all the time?
EQ?
Well, yeah, emotional intelligence, and it's just gone out of my head.
Right.
What is emotional adulthood as opposed to the other ways we express that?
It's not much different. For a long time, I dealt with that emotional intelligence.
And maturity is the word I was trying to get to. Emotional maturity.
Maturity. They're pretty well related. I just wanted a phrase that appealed to me, and it was one that when I was dealing with emotional intelligence, it was just about learning how to heal our emotional wounds and how to understand what we were really feeling, etc. Whereas emotional adulthood is about really growing up emotionally. Now, this is a very difficult concept to explain, but it makes it simpler if you ever listen to two grown-ups having an argument, and how quickly that argument degenerates into that kind of schoolyard kind of banter or name calling, or I didn't, you did not, you did, I did not, kind of, you are, I am not, that kind of...
I'm going to go tell on you.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, if you really listen to people in intimate relationships when they argue, that's when their fundamental emotional age emerges. Because they are, what I've found over and over again is that we really stopped growing up emotionally at a certain point. And a lot of it is, 60 years of age. And in some countries, it's 3 years old that the people just stopped growing emotionally because they had to protect themselves so much that they built this enormous defense system around their feelings. And once you do that, you can't grow anymore. You can't become any more than a 6-year-old emotionally, because the defense system is not only there to protect you, it's there to hold you in. It's there to keep you there. So what I've found is that by getting through our defense system and confronting our vulnerability, our human vulnerabilities, we actually begin to grow up. We grow in awareness, we grow in acceptance, we grow in recognition that we are not what we believe ourselves to be. And it's just a far, far different from... we tend to live, as human beings, we tend to live in our defense, control, and manipulation zone, because we just feel safer there, and we don't like to deal with our like I said, our jealousies for one, or our feelings of helplessness or powerlessness, which all human beings experience. And yet, when those feelings come up, our alarms go off, and we immediately go into a defensive posture.
And I guess we probably pretty much all do that. The title, Untethered Relationship, seems almost like an oxymoron to me.
Yeah.
How can you be untethered, unbound in any way to eat? Well, you are bound in some ways by choice, but and have a relationship. How can two people be individual and yet a couple? I used to do a lot of weddings, and I would say to the couple, you really need to remember that you need to stay who you are now, and then become this third entity of the two of you. Mm-hmm. And as I reflect on that, I'm thinking, nobody ever asked me how you do that.
Right. Well, if a person is living in their defense zone, which a majority of people are, there is no way they can experience an untethered relationship. The person, the important thing is understanding your own preferences, not your personal preferences, your essential preferences. We're all essential beings living inside a human body, and we tend to serve the body's preferences. Whereas who we really are, our essence, let's say, has specific characteristics and gifts and qualities that when they are expressed, they're expressed in a very, very unique way. And then they're expressed as individuals. So let's say you've got this two-boat policy, and the two of you are sailing along, and one of you wants to go check out an island over in the east there, and the other one doesn't. The other one wants to go and see what another part of the world looks like. There's just, their hearts are guiding them in two different directions. And yet, even though they move apart, they are not apart because they're connected. They're connected because they're both following their essential inclinations, and they're both supporting each other to do that. I mean, my children are in different parts of the country, and they have been for years. I've never felt disconnected from them because I've always just wanted the best for them. I've always, in my heart, supported them. So we're not separate in any way. I feel as close to them as if they were living at home. And that's the same thing with this two-boat thing, is that as long as you're supporting each other to be true to your soul, you cannot be apart.
So you're saying that in the boat analogy, the one who wants to go see the island should go see the island, and the other one should go do what they prefer, and they're still connected, and then they
Still
come back
connected.
together and can share the experience. Is that the gist of it?
They tend to, I would say, in 98% of those, maybe 99% of those cases, yeah, they move away to explore different things and meet up again and share what they've experienced, and then can go on for a long time, and then maybe one will go off in another way, the other will go off in a different way. In 1% of the cases, they may never come back. They may never, meet again. But again, it's what's important is that they're following what's really true for them to follow. And that's the key to being an emotional adult, is not putting your needs, your personal needs, or your defenses ahead of your essence, ahead of what you really are.
Oh, and we need to talk about that a whole lot more. We're going to take some time to have a break, and then we're going to come back and get into how do you handle having a two-boat relationship. This is Irene Conlan with my guest Christopher Moon saying stay tuned. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to the Self-Improvement Show. My guest today is Christopher Moon, who's written an amazing book titled The Untethered Relationship. And he's brought so many questions to my mind that I think we need several shows here. We were talking before the break about essential preferences and about being an emotional adult. And I believe, Christopher, you said that we should follow what our soul is telling us. And and my head is saying, wait a minute, how do I even know I'm an emotional adult? And how do I know whether this person that I think I'm absolutely head over heels in love with is an emotional adult? How do we sort this out?
Well, for one thing, it's just the way life seems to work. When I did a lot of marriage counseling, it seems that people of the same emotional level tend to find each other. You almost never, even if you see this 75-year-old man with a 30-year-old wife, there may seem a big disparity in ages, but their emotional maturity is at the same level, typically.
So you're saying like attracts like?
In a way, it's just for instance, your emotional level would be the same. When you left home, I left home like 45 years ago or something like that. And when I did, I was at the same emotional age as my parents. And sometimes we could go through our whole life and not grow up emotionally. The way you can, I don't feel like I'm any more than an emotional teenager now, if that, because the way you look at it is, how do you handle irritation and anxiety? Do you, and what are you like when you get angry? And you can basically see through those two questions, you can see your own, not to judge it in any way, but you can kind of see how old you are just by the way you react to life.
Some of us are still two.
Pardon?
Some of us may still be in the terrible twos.
Well, that's a response I got sometimes in my workshops when I would ask people to gauge their own level of emotional maturity, and I would give them examples of when you're irritated, if you automatically react to the irritation and project the irritation outside of you. As soon as you get irritated, if you're blaming somebody else for your irritation, and then making them responsible for your emotional state, then that's not what I would call that's still not very well developed emotionally. You're looking in the wrong direction. You're blaming somebody else. You're wanting to make somebody else guilty for what you're experiencing, etc. And then if you attack them for it, that shows an even, that's kind of like a 3 to 6 year old reaction, the reaction of a 3 to 6 year old, where you just, everything that you don't like, whatever feeling you don't like, you make it somebody else's responsibility. So that's one example. The thing, Irene, I don't think most people understand, and you only would, I think, because you would know this from being in this field, is that marriage and intimate relationships isn't about love. Because you can love anybody, that doesn't mean you marry them. That doesn't mean you come into an emotional relationship with them. But the fact is that in today's day and age, intimate and marriage relationships are about importance. And if you look at all the fighting that goes on in a marriage or in an intimate relationship, I guarantee you'll find the issue of importance and belonging at the root of the fight. Someone doesn't feel they're good enough, or somebody feels excluded or rejected. Almost all the time, that's what the fighting is about, even if you think it's about money or children or whatever. And so how you deal with that issue of importance and belonging will determine how much you can grow up.
Oh, that's an interesting insight. Would love to have more time to develop it. But I think we need to move on because you have so many good things in your book. In the very first line of your book, you say, I offer this book as a way to support you to have a direct experience of the true happiness that you actually are. And we could spend another whole show just on that statement. Mm-hmm. How do you explain the happiness that you actually already are to people who think they need happiness from someone else? Right.
Yeah, no, the first thing I would start with is what I'm saying true. If the person who hears that statement, do they feel it in their heart to be true or not? So if they think it's not true, then the only other possibility is that happiness is somewhere outside of you, and you have to find the way that it can be achieved. But if what I am saying is true, it means that you can stop looking outside, the person can stop looking outside for what's right in front of them. Okay, so that's step number one. You accept, okay, the happiness is here. It's always here because to be unconditional, it can't fluctuate. It can't come and go. It's here. It's always here. And so the person might ask, why am I not seeing it right now? And my response is, well, look at what you are seeing. Look at your situation. Are you judging your situation? Are you not fully accepting the situation in this moment? Are you not fully accepting how you feel in this moment? Because it's acceptance that unlocks takes the blinders off the eyes. In life, we have two choices, to either accept or reject. That's every human life experience comes from one of those two. If you're not experiencing, or if I'm not experiencing the happiness right now, what is it that I am not accepting? That maybe, while I'm in the office, I can't accept it. This isn't the right condition for being happy. Or I can't be happy until I know this is, until I have this kind of situation. Or I can't be happy until I have this amount of money. And so we are not accepting the situation we're in at the moment. But as soon as we do start accepting what is, it starts to lift the blinders off our eyes, and we get to actually see, but not with our eyes, we get to see that this happiness is a constant presence in our lives. Even when you're so-called unhappy, you can still be happy, because happiness isn't conditional to what you feel. Happiness is a state of being. So you can be happy and be sad. You can be happy and be joyful. The happiness doesn't shift, doesn't change with conditions or experiences. I know that.
And I guess for the sake of the listeners, I need to ask you, how do you define happiness?
Happiness, the first thing I always say is happiness is nothing. Because you cannot describe it. What we thought of as happiness was often relief or glee or a sense of achievement, and those were all temporary experiences. So happiness is a permanent state of being that is what we really are. It's this happy, joyful being that we really are, coming into a human form to have a human experience, and that's about all I can say. It's just this presence that is closer to you than your own breath.
And I think that for people who get so lost in things like cell phones and texting and TV and what people tell us we should be like and tell us all the things we should have to be happy, it's really hard to focus in on the fact that there's a part of us that's happy, that there's a part of us that doesn't need all that stuff, that there's a part of us that we need to get acquainted with that's always there and always happy. And to get people to do that and even recognize that that's available to them can be difficult.
I would say it's almost impossible. But nothing's truly impossible, but on the surface it seems almost impossible, because one of the things that, if you notice, one of the words that we use a lot is the word should.
Yes.
And as soon as we use the word should, we're moving away from what is. So we're either thinking about what we should do or what we should be or what we shouldn't do and shouldn't be. And a lot of our lives are run by shoulds. And what happened to me when I began to have that direct experience of happiness, I tell you, at least 50% of the shoulds in my life immediately disappeared. Immediately, I couldn't believe how less tormented I felt. And then I realized shoulds are such tormentors because should does not allow for acceptance. It's always about, there's something wrong with me, so I should be better. I shouldn't be like this. Or there's something wrong with this situation or with my life. It should be different. And that should is such a tormentor.
On the back of your book, you say, release your expectations and experience your true self. And I would think that releasing your expectations would get rid of the shoulds.
Would get rid of, well, it should.
Oh, that's good.
It does. It does. Expectations are the same thing as a should.
A should, yeah. You have 8 principles and a bonus principle in the book, and these are so good. Can we go through some of these? Like the first one, my partner's not the source of my happiness, I am. And that always takes me, when I read that, it takes me to that line in Jerry Maguire where she says, you complete me.
Right.
I had trouble with that ever since I heard it, because I kind of think I'm complete. I'm complete. There's no room in my skin for somebody else to complete me. Right.
No way for this.
Is this, is this what you're meaning by that? My partner's not the source of my happiness?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at the motivation for most people for most of us to get involved in an intimate relationship, or even most of our close relationships, it's to get something from the other person. I mean, it's a need that draws us a lot of times. And so if it's a need, that means you believe there's an emptiness inside you somewhere, a hunger, a thirst, or an emptiness that something from outside of you has to satiate, has to satisfy. So right away, I don't want to, how to say this, right away you're screwed.
Yeah, well, that's a good way to say it.
Yeah, you've no chance of ever considering that what you're looking for is already there.
And so you choose somebody that you think is going to fill your need, and that can't be.
It can't be, and even if you have the Buddha for a partner, it wouldn't matter. Just because that need, by its nature, is impossible to satisfy. Sometimes it gets soothed, but the next time that the person tries to soothe it in that way, it's not going to be enough. Just because the nature of need is it cannot be satisfied.
And we really need to remember that. This one, I think, is maybe, to me, I'm going to skip one because it's almost the same. My partner's not the cause of my unhappiness.
Right.
But this one is so critical. No matter how hard I try, I cannot change my partner.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, then stop. To me, that's the one that causes more problems in relationships than almost anything else. Mm-hmm. When you start trying to change the person, we talk about unconditional love, and I love you unconditionally, but if you just stop doing what you do or being who you are, I'd be happier, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It gets us into trouble. What do you tell people when they come to you and say, I can't get my partner to whatever, stop clearing his throat or picking his nose or whatever?
I basically just tell them your partner is in your life for one purpose, and that's to irritate you. That's the way I start. I don't mean it literally that that's all they're going to do, but basically from the get-go, your partner is going to be the major irritant in your life, and that's essential to helping you grow. When life wants you to grow, it sends an irritant. It sends a stimulant. And there's no better, maybe your kids are a second line of irritation. Yeah. But it's all what they think is that if my partner, what I would always think is if my partner's irritating me, if I'm upset, there's something wrong either with my partner or the relationship or me. And I don't want anything to be wrong with me, so it's going to be my partner or the relationship. And if there's something wrong with the relationship, then it's my partner's fault. So I'm not understanding that the primary function of the partner is to help you grow up. We always look at them, when they're helping us to grow up, we look at them as the enemy. When in fact, that's their function, is to make us uncomfortable enough to grow.
So you're saying that when you feel, if you do that one more time, I'm either going to have to kill you or leave. Yeah. That's a sign that you need to grow up.
Most of the time, yeah. Even there are points where, if, say, for instance, the one of the partners is drinking from morning till night, and the other partner just feels like, I've had enough. This is just. I'm walking out of this one. Those types of situations, there's always those. But in a day-to-day basis, the average relationship, the partner is going to irritate you, and it's there for your benefit. So you might as well give them thank them for doing their job and ask them to keep doing it until you've grown up.
Until you can do it without being all unhinged. On that note, we're going to go to break. This is Irene Conlan with my guest, Christopher Moon, saying, stay tuned. We're going to be right back with more about untethered relationships. Welcome back to the Self-Improvement Show. My guest today is Christopher Moon, who's written an amazing book called The Untethered Relationship that'll give you a whole different perspective on maturity, for one thing, and relationships. I really, really encourage you, if you're in a relationship, to get this book. Maybe read it together and talk about it. Could be very helpful for both of you. Christopher, tell us how people can reach you. If they want to find you, how do they do that?
Well, I live in the only desert in Canada, so I'm not that easy to get to physically. But I would like to mention that I invite people to go on my website, because there's www.visionmountain.com, because there's a couple of card games you can play. Once you log in, you can play these relationship card games. One's about building a foundation for a relationship, and then the building the structure of relationship. And you can play those games freely. And also, if you do register, I'll send you a free workbook on relationships. I wrote a book called Relationship Bridge to the Soul, and the workbook is related to what was brought up in that book. So I really encourage people to peruse those. They can get a better feel, and it's at no cost to anybody. They can just get a feel for this kind of work, this kind of approach.
Oh, I think this kind of approach could change a lot of relationships and society if we'd go that way and all grow up a little bit. If you've forgotten that his website is Vision Mountain, you can find it on the self-improvement blog. You can click it and go from there. But do look it up. It's a really lovely website. Has some very valuable and interesting material on it. We've been talking about relationships from all points of view, but this one, I think, and this is one of his principles, is so important. I want you to explain it to us, Christopher. Specialness is not love. He doesn't make me feel special. So, finish the sentence. I want to feel special.
So, yeah, if he doesn't make me feel special, he doesn't love me.
Yeah.
And yet, specialness is it's an illusion. It's an unattainable thing to experience. You can only experience it temporarily, and not for much longer than, I would say, half an hour before you're wanting more, before you're wanting to feel more of it, or before the feeling is faded that you're the most important person in your partner's life. The need to be important is such an obsession with us that we base our relationships on it. How important do I feel when I'm with this person? How important does this person make me feel, etc.? Does this person praise me or appreciate me enough? And it's impossible for an individual to satisfy that 24-hour-a-day thirst for specialness. And yet we've called it love. They call it love in movies. They call it love in books, that the feeling that you're the most important person in the world is love. But it's not. It's just something for the personality, or whatever you call it, the ego, to revel in for, like I said, very briefly.
Let me ask you a question. Does needing to feel special also mean that I need to be in control? Are those two twins?
Well, one leads to the other. Yeah, I mean, being in control makes sure that you don't feel unspecial, but you try to control things so that it'll make you feel special. But specialness is the goal. Yeah,
not ordinary. I need to be the only one on the horizon. Is that what that means?
Exactly. We were like that with our parents. We wanted to be the most special child to our parents. We wanted to be the most special friend. It goes on, and it is an amazingly exclusive experience that we chase after. It just causes so much suffering and torment in relationships, and yet we can't seem to get enough of it.
I hear women saying things like, so-and-so does this for his wife. Why can't you do that? Why can't you make me feel that way? That seems almost like a death sentence for a marriage.
Oh man, it puts so much pressure on the other person, and how does that work anyway? Because If you want your partner to make you feel special, well, then aren't you supposed to be making them feel special too? I mean, it's got to go both ways.
Yeah, but I've got to be more special than he.
But he wants that too.
He wants that too. So you're always in competition, aren't you?
Exactly. Specialness is an excluding experience, not a joining experience. There's only room for one at the top.
Yep, unfortunately, and many people are in that dilemma of competition in their relationship. The one principle that I just relish, and I want to talk about this, is your bonus, and that is, I am the one that I've been looking for. Mm-hmm. Explain that. Talk about that.
Yeah, I was going to capitalize the O in one, by the way, just as an added bonus. I am the one that I've been looking for.
Yeah.
But the thing is that we almost vault into this world in a state of searching. And we are constantly, my first 52 years of life, it seemed, was constantly looking for truth. I was looking for something that I could, first of all, believe in that would be so solid that it would never desert me or betray me. I wanted to be able to find something that was, and I thought I wanted to find the perfect partner, the perfect wife. I wanted to find the truth about who I am. I kept searching and searching, looking through books, and I've read so much, and I've gone to listen to so many teachers out of that need to find something. And then only one day to realize that what I was searching for is not even hiding. It's not even a foot away from me. I mean, I can't look anywhere without it being right there with me. And yet here I am brushing it aside and looking for that, whatever it is that I think is out there. But it's this moment, has exactly what every single human being in the world is looking for. And only in the moment. They're not going to find it tomorrow. And that's another problem with searching. When we get on the path of searching, whatever we're searching for is always in the future. And we are always in the present, in fact. So we're never going to get into the future. So that what we're looking for must be here now. It must be.
And I'm thinking of that song, Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, we need to look within instead of without.
And the amazing thing is, this is why partners will irritate each other, is that in the irritation, once you stop reacting to what the other person is doing and you look at your own discomfort inside you and you accept that human experience of discomfort, what this does is it expands your awareness. And with your awareness, you can penetrate that vulnerability that you think is you. You can actually see through that vulnerability to the essence of what you really are. It's what I call a process in the book, and it's the ingredients for process are acceptance, awareness, and ultimately appreciation. So if you can accept your vulnerability, which is very difficult for us to do, and just be with it, we will see the vulnerability as just like a cloud. It's not solid at all. And with your awareness, nothing untrue can withstand awareness. So once you shine the light of direct awareness on something that's not true, it'll dissolve in front of your very eyes, and you can look into what is really true. And
let me ask you this. What happens in a relationship when one person awakens and the other one may not?
Mm-hmm.
How does that change the relationship? Can a relationship last?
I've never seen it happen, but yes, I'm sure it can. I'm sure it can last.
I would think that go ahead.
No, I was going to say the only thing, though, is it's the level of emotional maturity in both people, the level of responsiveness in their lives. You basically, when you're in a relationship with someone at the same level. Now, if you take a step ahead and grow in emotional maturity, most of the time the partner, within 2 hours to 2 weeks, will take that step and stand beside you. Now, if you take another step, it's the same thing. That other partner will eventually take that step and be beside you. The thing is, though, that if you take a step and that partner doesn't step forward, you're more likely to take another step and the relationship is over. It's just, it completely disappeared because you're at another age. And
yes.
We tend to not stay with people that are of different ages emotionally with each other.
That's what I was thinking as I read this, that it would be impossible to stay for both of them.
Right.
And it's okay to say, this relationship is not working for me now. We used to get so uptight because the relationship ended, and yet we expect everybody to grow and change. Yeah.
I know, and sometimes one person outgrows the other for a period of time. Maybe later on that other person will grow as well, but sometimes they don't. And that's just the way it is. They're enjoying whatever stage they're in, and they want to stay there. The other one wanted to move on. That's I've never seen any relationship be anything but perfect. No matter what it looks like on the outside, it's designed for one purpose, and that's to help the individual, give the individual every opportunity possible to grow in acceptance and awareness and appreciation of who they really are, of what they are, of the life they've been experiencing.
Well, there's a lot to think about in your book. I encourage everybody that's in a relationship or wants to be in a relationship to read The Untethered Relationship. It is so good. Christopher, I hate to say this, but we are right up to the end of the show.
Well, thank you very much, Irene.
What's the thought you'd like to leave with our listeners today?
Basically what I iterated before, that we have two options in life. Whenever we're presented with any situation we're presented with, whether we like it or not, we have two options. We can either accept what is, or we can experience the suffering of rejecting what is and chasing after what we think should be. Either way, there's no right or wrong in my life. You accept or you reject because that's the human choice you have. And either way, it's fine. It's just that acceptance has less suffering attached to it. It has no suffering attached to it, actually. So if you really are suffering, it's probably because you're rejecting what could be accepted.
If you say that again, if you're really suffering, it's because you're rejecting what can be accepted. You could say should be. We don't do the should. Yeah, we don't do the should thing. It happens with awareness and appreciation and acceptance. Christopher, thank you so much for being with us today.
It was great. I really appreciate your work, Irene.
Lovely, lovely book. Thank you so much. I encourage everybody to read it. Again, The Untethered Relationship. You can get it at Amazon or any bookstore. You'll be so glad you did that. This is Irene Conlan with my guest, Christopher Moon, saying thank you so much for being with us today. Come back again next week for more of the Self-Improvement Show.